Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and welcome back to our full review of the Meze Lyric closed back isodynamic planar magnetic headphone from Meze that lists for 2,000 US dollars. All right, I did a first impressions of this video a little while back, and so I will link to that in the description below. And as usual, please like and subscribe and look for ways to continue to support this channel going forward. And thanks to all of you who have supported up to this point. All right, coming back to the full review of the Meze Lyric here. Now, this is Meze's attempt to get into the closed back game. All right, but also just specifically the high-end closed back game, and like you read their website for this headphone, and I will link to that down below too. They are clearly trying to get in on the high-end closed back, like on the go market here, because there's limited options. Okay, in that bracket there. I mean, there's a couple of the focals, namely the Stelia, if you're willing to spend $3,000, that's up there. That's an easy to drive, well isolating closed back that can be used for on the go use because it's easy to drive and so forth. This one is trying to do that at $2,000. All right. So to me, stylistically, it looks like Meze has essentially taken their Empyrean design. It has very Empyrean-like aesthetic traits to it, I think. But to me, it also looks like they have combined it with like a Sony XM3, XM4 kind of styling in a way. That's not a bad thing. I'm saying it just looks to me like that's what they've done. Or maybe even like a Drop Panda kind of styling in there. But something like that, where it just kind of, even though it has like the basic Meze look to it, still kind of has a little bit of a flavor of some of those lesser expensive Bluetooth, wireless headphones that you see down in the $300-400 range. Again, that's not really a criticism, just saying that's what it looks like to me. Now, the comfort is pretty decent. Okay, the clamp, the headband is different from the Empyrean line because the Empyrean line has that really funky looking contour to the head shape suspension strap headband system. This is just a spring steel headband, okay, in there, which is pretty comfortable, and it's let's see if the camera pictures that up. Yeah, it's kind of textured in there to allow for a little bit of airflow, a couple of slots in there, all that. Now the driver and the cup is scaled down from the Empyrean line just to make it more mobile and on-the-go friendly, and so that it can fit into a case like this, okay, about this size. Again, everything's trying to make this like on-the-go travel friendly. Stock cable looks like this. There's a couple of them in the stock packaging. It's got this rubber coating to it, so it's a little springy. Okay, I ended up not using this much, but it has very, very thin 3.5 millimeter connectors on the other end. Okay, it's a cable. It's okay. All right, and then we have the dual 3.5 millimeter cup entry here, right there, which I think a dual 3.5 millimeter entry on the cups is good if you're talking about on the go. It's rugged enough to not break easily, but it's also like it will still, if you stag the cable on something, all that while you're out and about, it usually just pulls right out of the cup rather than damaging something. Okay, so I think that's all good. I mean, Meze does a good job on their build. They do. Okay, that's one thing that they have down. Here's the problem. All of what I just said, is meaningless. It doesn't matter. Okay, and the reason it doesn't matter is because this does not sound very good. Okay, now, I do my best on this channel to not get overly negative and just try to call balls and strikes as I see them. This is just not good. Okay, I don't want to dwell on that point. Like, the reasons that I say that it's not good is that it's peaky in the mids and in the treble. The mid-range is it's too forward in the shout range, so it's shouty, it's honky, it's hollow sounding. Vocals sound very nasally, and so forth. Brass instruments can just be too aggressive and overwhelming, and so forth. In the treble, that peak adds a lot of excess shimmer. Hi-hats, frankly, sometimes sound like the blast from an air compressor rather than a musical instrument. So it's brittle and harsh sounding in the treble. Then the bass is, it's not a very bassy headphone. It is more bass lean. There's really not any punch or slam or physicality down low, which that can be a preference thing. But there's the bass presentation here, just to me sounds disjointed and disconnected from the mid-range and the treble. Like it never feels like the music is fully put together to me. It's always like there's a mid-range and treble presentation, and there's a bass presentation. And the bass presentation is a little bit more like narrow and centered and its own thing. And then the mid-range and the treble, it's very odd. It's very odd. Okay, I will leave that there. Yeah, just the bass sounds a little disjointed and presented almost separately from the mid-range and the treble to me. So the staging is a bit smaller and closed in than even other high-quality closed backs that are, at least $1,000. Okay, so it's not a big stager. That's one thing the Empyreans did fairly well, was they staged in a bigger, more realistic and believable way. This doesn't do that. The resolution is just meh. It is not particularly resolving. Okay, and it comes down to the sound. The overall presentation is just kind of dull. There's not a lot of life to it. It's shouty. It's brittle. It's not very coherent. It's kind of disjointed throughout the entire frequency range and all of that. And just frankly, for $2,000, we deserve better. Just straight up. For $2,000, we deserve so much better than what they came up with here. Now, is that a break-in problem? I mentioned in my first impressions video that I didn't break this in very much before I got to the first impressions. I put about 72 hours at least of hard driving break-in on these, in addition to the, few dozen hours that I spent listening to them. And I just did not notice much change. Maybe they smoothed out a little bit. A very tiny little bit. Maybe. I'm not sure. Okay, so that is what it is. I am a believer in break-in. There is science behind that. When you're talking about vibrating and moving parts, new materials are a little bit stiffer. Okay, and if they are designed to have points of flexure, they're going to be a little bit stiff at those points of flexure. And so, the more you flex them, the looser that they will become at that flexure. And yes, I think that translates into audible changes in many headphones. The Dan Clark Audio Stealth needed a lot of break-in, but it eventually smoothed out and woke up. The Odyssey LCD5 took about 30 hours, which is much less than the Dan Clark, but it was a little harsh in the mids, but that smoothed out quite a bit after about 30 hours of break-in. So I'm a believer in break-in. So far, we're talking over 100 hours of use on this thing, and it also came from someone who had it before me. Hasn't made a difference. So I know there was a lot of excitement and buzz about this one, and I'm sorry to derail that hype train. I wanted it to be better than this. Okay. So if you are in the market for a closed back headphone and you have $2,000, I would say look at a Focal. Okay. Hit up the used market. You might be able to find a Stellia for around $2,000 used if you look long enough and at the right time. Okay, or you pinch your pennies and you get more up into the $2,200, $2,300 range. You could probably get a Stellia. The Radiance. I compared this thing a lot to my Focal Radiance, which is $1,300. The Radiance is it's superior in almost in every way. Okay, even on build quality, Focals and Mezes are built differently. They're styled differently. They fit a little differently, but they're both of really high build quality. Okay, so I mean, the Meze doesn't have that advantage there either. Even at $2,000, I have my Lawton modded Fostex TH900. Just way better performance than this. Like, now both Focal and Fostex are a little bit more aggressive in their macro dynamics, and this is not. So that's one way that they are different, but I'm talking resolution, staging, imaging and separation, timbre, okay, all of that other stuff. They just outclass this one. They just do. All right, so yeah, I think Meze needs to go back to the drawing board on that one, on this one, and yeah, we'll just leave it there. So I know there will be those who disagree with me out there. I know that there are some who just say, Meze is great. They have that really nice presentation. I agree. The Empyreans had a really nice presentation and a pleasing signature and all that to them. This just doesn't even have that. Okay. So, all right. I will stop beating the dead horse here, and I will leave it there. And hopefully the next reviews that come out are a little bit more fun. Right? But for now, I am Wave Theory. Thanks for watching, and until next time, enjoy the music.